right in that very spot used to be a picnic table. It's been a couple months since I've been out here, but apparently they've moved it. It's all right, I'll make do. No notes, which means I'm probably going to mess this up. I'm going to forget some detail that I thought was very important a few minutes ago even. By the way, I think I found a suitable place to do this. I just don't feel like standing up and doing this. I want to sit down. My grandfather was born in 1917, and I was always told that he was an American Indian, Cherokee and Blackfoot. And he had the traits of an American Indian as far as his looks. He died at 60 years old and had a head full of black hair. He didn't lose any hair, and it wasn't white. And his skin tone would make you think of a red-skinned Indian. So the problem with American Indian genealogy is it's just hard to do. American Indian genealogy and African American genealogy, the records are sparse, and American Indians back in the early days would not admit they were American Indians because of the stigma attached to them. African American, I mean, it's pretty obvious, but American Indians, they could claim something else. For instance, Black Dutch. How many of you have American Indian tradition in your family that says we're Black Dutch? So if you look up Black Dutch, there really were no such thing as a Black Dutch. Now, over in the German area, there was an area called the Black Forest that it's possible that these people could have come from that called themselves Black Dutch. But a lot of times the American Indians called themselves that just to avoid being known as an American Indians. And sometimes they just claim to be white. Because let's be honest, most American Indians, when they're not in the sun all the time, they look white. They may have a little wide nose. They may have darker hair, which I don't. I'm bald and white-headed if I grew it. But they can get by with claiming to be something else and it'll work. Well, that was fine back then. They had to survive. I understand that. So basically, it was easy and beneficial at that time to claim to be something else. And that's part of what makes it hard. The other part that makes it hard is that if you want to claim it and get, government benefits, there are things you can do if you're an American Indian by government definition. You have to be descended from American Indians that were on census rolls from back in the 1880s and 1890s. Now, these census rolls were taken on reservations only, which means you have to be descended from American Indians that were on reservations. In other words, they had been fully conquered, which is words I hate to use, but it's a fact. My grandpa and his people, they were not fully conquered. They stayed in North Carolina when all the other Indians were going out to Oklahoma to Indian Territory, the Trail of Tears, if you remember correctly. So he was descended from that bunch, which means there's no government proof that he was an American Indian. So what about DNA? No. For one thing, I'm not giving up my blood for anybody to get my DNA. I don't trust the government. So you're not getting that. Turns out that it's not that reliable anyway. So basically how DNA works, as far as DNA testing is concerned, is that you may be descended from American Indian and Irish. Let's just use that as an example. Your brother or sister descended from the very same two parents, okay? You may have dark hair, brown eyes, look like an American Indian. Your sibling may have red hair and blue eyes, looks like an Irish person. The DNA test will show that you have more American Indian blood in you. Your sibling, it'll say they have more Irish blood in them. Though both of y'all come from the same parents, who came from the same parents, who came from the same parents, who have the same great-great-grandparents up the line. It's not reliable for trying to find your DNA, your ethnicity. I have a friend of mine, a really close friend, and I've known him for years and years and years. And when he was younger, he looked like a spitting image of an American Indian. He looked like the Asian, he had that Asian look. It kind of high cheekbones. He just looked like an American Indian. I don't know how to go into detail because I'm not sure how to describe what I'm saying. But he looked like an American Indian. He goes and gets DNA test about a year ago and shows he's like 3 or 5%. And I knew then something's wrong. And that's when I started looking at, investigating how this DNA tests work. So they're not reliable for that kind of thing. Another thing regarding DNA testing is that there's, a lot, especially in the Southeast, there's a lot of traditions that say, well, I'm from the Cherokee. Well, the Cherokee was in that area. So that is some plausibility to that. Another plausibility, though, that has been shown through DNA testing is back in the early 1600s, before slavery became a thing, African Americans and white people mixed up pretty regularly. So basically, you may have kind of olive skin, kind of darker skin, but in reality, way up the line, there's an African American in your family. So back to my my grandfather. I have been working on this for years and years and years. And only just a couple of months ago did I run across something. For one thing, I told you he looked like an American Indian. But he had 2 brothers that were bald-headed and white-haired. As I'm going through genealogy, I'm finding out his people mainly come from Ireland. His name is Irish. There's a castle over in Ireland with his name. What happened? So, what I find is an Irishman married an American Indian in Tennessee in the very, very, very early 1800s. My thoughts are this guy who wasn't like everybody else, because in the very, very early 1800s, Tennessee wasn't a place for your average person. You had to be tough. There's this man that went west into Tennessee, married a Cherokee woman. As a matter of fact, the first evidences I found showed in the family trees, Cherokee woman. Didn't have a name. And my thoughts were that he was in Indian territory of the Cherokee, so their kids married Indian and their kids married Indian, because what that many white people around? There's some plausibility to that. But then again, like I said, I come across evidence about 2 months ago that really tied everything together. My great, whatever up the line grandfather married a woman named Raven Canoe. Raven Canoe was the daughter of Chief Dragging Canoe. He was a big deal in the Cherokee Nation. He was a war chief, and he fought to the bitter end too. Unlike his father, who, I hope I get his name right because I don't have it in front of me, was Chief Attakullakulla, and he was a diplomat. He seen the handwriting on the wall. He knew that the Indian people would basically get wiped out if we don't accept their culture and try to make diplomatic ties to make the best of our situation, in his mind. He was one of 10, if I remember correctly, Indians that went to England and went and visited I think it was the king at the time, Chief Attakullakulla. It's pretty neat that I found this out, but it took 25 years because it is so difficult to trace American Indian ancestry. I'd rely on someone else's investigation on that. And I'm not even sure, I haven't confirmed all of that. I'm not sure it can be confirmed. Now, the Cherokee and Blackfoot that my grandfather was supposed to be, oral tradition, it ties to that. It was either, I think it was Attakullakulla. He was actually from the Blackfoot tribe and was kidnapped when he was a baby and brought down south. For those of y'all who don't know, the Blackfoot tribe is more north, like Chicago, Wisconsin, the Great Lakes, I think New York. They were a northern tribe. And so when I first knew where the tribes were located, I was asking myself, well, how can that be? The Cherokee and the Blackfoot. How do they mix it up? So this goes back to our oral tradition 200 years ago, I guess. I don't know. But I'm just saying, it is very, very difficult to trace this. I'm happy with what I found. I'm very happy with what I found. I wasn't looking for a big name. I was just looking for proof. By the way, I did find on my way to there a man by the same name as my grandfather, that same surname, who was a signer of a treaty between white men and Indians. He was an interpreter. And I did find some that apparently went to Oklahoma with that same last name. And I already know that was my great-grandfather's brother's people that went that way. I figured that out. So I knew there were strong ties there somewhere. But just for looking for something concrete and saying that is the person, that is the American Indian, Raven Canoe, I finally found it. Y'all, good luck if you're looking for American Indian ancestry. Really, I mean it. Don't count on DNA. It's going to fail you. You just dig in and dig in and dig in. And I wasn't even looking for a big name. I was looking for someone that I could say, that's the one. Look here, y'all have a good day.
Don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe.